Morning, Pete's. I'm back, and I'm back with something different because throughout the summer, I want to do at least one video per week on various different topics that I can think of at the time. It's too early to talk about the World Club Champs, but we'll be doing that in a couple of weeks. But today, I want to talk about the promoted sides because I think we've got a bit of a problem. Not just us, I mean the Premier League, because the gulf between the Premier sides and the Championship sides is like widening so much that now it's almost impossible for promoted sides to actually stay up. They've got to beat the likes of Wolves, Crystal Palace, Brentford. They've got to finish above them if they want to stay in the division. And in terms of FPL, it's created a bit of an issue, I think. I mean, a lot of these players are now complete non-options. So I'm going to look at that and see if there's any ways in which we can try and make them more viable. Obviously I don't have much say in this, but hopefully people do listen, and it's good to throw ideas about anyway. But we'll have a look at how last season's promoted players got on, because it's useful for next season, isn't it? Because when we see some of the players that people were bringing in at the start of this season just gone, quite a few people were bringing in players from promoted sides, weren't they? So we'll have a look at how they all got on and see if there's anything we can do to improve their prospects. Okay, so we'll start with the goalkeepers. Now here on the left is a list of the points that goalkeepers scored, and you can see the first promoted keeper is way down on this list, Ramsdale, who didn't even score 97 points. He did miss 3 or 4 games, to be fair, but so did quite a few of these players above him in the list. And if you look at Ipswich, for example, and Leicester, you could add all the points of all their goalkeepers together, and they wouldn't even add up to 100. You've got like Leicester's goalkeepers, what's that, 63, 83, 88, 90. So 38 games, Leicester goalkeepers scored 90 points between the whole lot of them, which is pretty poor. You can compare it with other 4.5s like Flecken, 136, Sells, 150, Henderson, 135, even Sanchez, like Chelsea, absolutely awful keeper for a lot of the season, and even he scored 126 points. Leno, 115. So there really is no reason whatsoever to pick any of these keepers when they are priced at 4.5 million. We can have ideas, like Steve-O is very bullish on Burnley's defence this season, and people will be talking up Leeds really because of the name, because it's Leeds. And, they may fare better, they may not. But if you look at the recent seasons, the points that promoted players are getting is declining year on year. So I've just been for a run, peeps. I've got to have a drink. I went out at 5 a.m. and I got down the street and I could hear all this screaming going on, all this effing and blinding, someone kicking off, his missus was running down the street to get away from him, and absolute chaos, peeps. I didn't have my phone on me, else I'd have rung up the police. Anyway, I'm sure someone else would have done. It's waking up the whole neighbourhood. Anyway, so that's the keepers, and we can see, I mean, one solution would be to make them 4 million, all promoted keepers 4 million. But we'll look at solutions in a moment because, every solution has another problem. So, right, we'll get on to defenders. And this is absolutely dire, peeps. I mean, this isn't even all defenders. This is all defenders priced 4.7 or less. It excludes a lot of really good players that actually did start at 4.5, but have moved above 4.7. But there's a whole list here. See, I've got 2 columns quite a few 4.5 defenders getting like 120, 130 points. A lot getting over 100, you know, your Conser Dunks and Winks, although I don't think Dunk did he? He didn't get over 100, but you've got Huijsen, who only played like half a season, really, didn't he? Livramento. I mean, if you've got players like Livramento, Robinson, Williams, Colwell, Byrne, Wan-Bissaka, Mikalenko, Collins, you are not going to be picking a 4.5 defender from a newly promoted side, are you? Even if you pick a 4. I mean, a lot of these, to be fair, a lot of these have been priced. In fact, all of them, by the look of it, have been priced at 4 million. I mean, I think Justin may have been 4.5. He may have fallen down to 4.1. But they've priced them at 4. And in fact, I did have Harwood Bellis in my team. A lot of people picked. I think Davis actually did start at 4.5, didn't he? And he was actually a content creator pick at the start of the season. Remember that? He was going to be the most attacking fullback in the league, wasn't he? Because he was tearing it up in the championship. Well, look how many points he got. 52 points. 52. He wouldn't even make the next page. You know, there'd be 70 or 80 defenders got more points than Davis of Ipswich this season. Absolutely shocking. And you can see here, defenders in general, absolutely woeful. I mean, if you're going to get in a 4.4, in a 4.0, then you really can't expect anything. And in fact, if you get an injured player in your team, rather than have the confidence to play one of these guys, you're going to end up using a valuable transfer, aren't you? Whereas if you have a Mikalenko or a Collins or a Williams or whoever it might be, obviously those players have probably been more expensive this season, but there will be a whole load of 4.5s playing for decent clubs that are good options. And when you get an injured player in your defence, you can just slot one of those in with a bit more confidence than some of these 4.0s. Now, I know we all go chasing them because every now and then one of them turns out to be good. But I put it to you, peeps, that it's very rare, and it's becoming rarer, especially amongst promoted sides. You know, you might get a 4.0 playing for another team, you never know, who could open up a position due to injuries or whatever. But it's a very, very long time since we had somebody half decent in defence. And we can see that even, do you remember I was talking about the new scoring system that they have in the World Club Champs, where if a player under 5% owned gets 2 extra points, gets 4 points or more, then they get 2 extra points. Well, even that would not make a huge amount of difference for these defenders. You know, Justin, I think, would get an extra 8 points over the course of a season, because I think there were 4 times he scored 4 points or more. So he'd have ended up on 78, still way below a lot of these players. So it's very difficult to know how to actually, but you know, you could almost double the points of defenders from promoted sides, and they still wouldn't be essential. You know, only Justin would have been a good pick, really. The rest of them would still just bring them up to some of these other players. But it's very difficult to know what to do. But we can see that if you're planning next season and one of your defenders has done really well in the championship, like Davis did last season, then don't be fooled, peeps. Don't be fooled. Because we all like a shiny new toy. But the odds on them turning out to be any good are very, very slim, judging by this. I know all you Leeds fans, you will be flocking to them, won't you? Flocking to them. And look at midfielders. This is 5.5 and under, and it doesn't include the likes of Clivett, who started at 5.5, I think, and is now way above 5.5, so is not on this list. So, woeful again. I mean, look at there's some very good scores. I mean, you can argue, in fact, that last season of the season just gone was probably the best season for low-priced midfielders that we've had in a very long time, wasn't it? I mean, you've got the likes of Clivert and Semenyo, who are no longer on this list. Clivert, Semenyo, lots of them. Murphy, Iwobi, Elanga, Sade, Sarr. We all know about him, don't we? Hopeless. And a lot of good players on this list. But you can see that even defensive midfielders, like Casado with Chelsea, have more points than the more creative players in the promoted sides. So Fernandez is the highest from Southampton, 95 points. Didn't even make 100. He's 5 million. You're not going to go there. You are not going to go there. Hutchinson, Ipswich, decent player, 88 points. Most Leicester managers, 83. And another interesting thing actually about all these great cheap midfielders this year was that 3-5-2, I think, became a great option because the likes of Murphy were scoring more points than the strikers. We'll have a look in a moment when we have a look at the strikers. But you can see here, again, if you'd added an extra 2 points every time one of these promoted players got 4 points or more, they still would only be about 105, 110 at the most. I mean, they're cheap, but they're just not registering. They are not registering in terms of points. The gulf between them and the other teams is just too high for them to amass many points. So, strikers. Now, this is a bit different. I mean, you look at Delap and Vardy, and they've both done very well. Very well. In fact, you can argue that Delap should have been a lot highly owned than he actually was this season. I mean, he's outscored Evan Nielsen. I know Evan Nielsen probably played a few matches less, but he's ahead of the likes of Gakpo, João Pedro, Welbeck, Ndai, Solanke. Way ahead of Solanke. I mean, I had Solanke for 15 matches this last season. And it's probably the reason I'm not finishing in the top 10k, because very poor. But you look at some of these other, like Munoz, Fulham, etc. I mean, the big advantage, I think, this is the one area where I think promoted players are pickable if they are good finishers, basically, like Delap and Vardy are, good solid finishers. Because what happens is, the advantage these players have got over other sides is they are nailed on. They're pretty much a Delap play every single game, whereas a lot of other clubs have got competition. Your likes of Gakpo, João Pedro, Welbeck, and Ndai, all of them. Strand Larsen has had Cunha. So we've got Raul and Munoz. So they all have other competition within their teams, whereas the promoted sides tend to have one number 9, a traditional number 9, to score their goals, and they do quite well. You can see Southampton, absolutely woeful, absolutely awful. Look, Archer, top score 57, so nothing there at all. And of course, a lot of Premier teams don't even seem to have proper strikers, do they, really? I mean, Chelsea, for example, although Delap could be the new Chelsea striker, which was going to be very, very interesting to see whether he scores more at Chelsea than he did at Ipswich. I mean, logic would tell you he will, but a lot of people are saying that the reason that Delap and Vardy do well is because Ipswich and Leicester are like beaten halfway through the match, and the opposition aren't quite so content on a clean sheet. And they're attacking these sides, so they leave gaps at the back for the likes of Delap and Vardy to pinch a goal at some stage. But we can see that there's not too much needed here in attack. It seems to be the other positions where year on year, there just isn't, it's just no real fantasy worthy players. It might change this season, but the big question is, what can we do to kind of make these players more appealing? And it's not just players from these promoted sides, it's players from the likes of Wolves and actually there's not too many, are there really? Well, West Ham and players like that. Other than the talisman in the team, there's very other few options to pick from these sides. But what can we do to make these players more fantasy relevant? So the first thing you could do is make them cheaper. For example, if you made players from promoted teams 3.5 million, for example, would people buy them? Would they buy them? I think the problem with this is that, yes, they would buy them, but they'd just stick them on the bench and then they'd have more money to spend on other players, wouldn't they? The normal players that they pick. And that's probably not a good thing because it makes making a good team actually easier, doesn't it, if you make them cheaper? So I don't think that's a particularly viable option, really, unless you make the other outfield players more expensive to compensate. Add an extra 500,000 to the likes of Isaac and all those sort of players that we all pick. So if you made them more expensive, then that's the other option, of course, isn't it? You don't have to make these ones cheaper. You could just make everyone else more expensive. So you're actually forced to choose some of these players just to make a squad under 100 million. Now, another way is to award more points. In particular, I think defence and goalkeepers, or maybe even points for defensive actions, maybe. I don't know, but it's difficult to do. But like I said, that rule where the World Club Champs have got, where you get an extra 2 points if you get 4 points or more for season. Maybe you could even drop it down to they get 2 more points if they get 3 points even, because we've seen that defenders and keepers from these promoted sides just aren't worth picking. If you're picking one next season based on the recommendation of a content creator who's trying to be clever by picking somebody that he thinks is like a differential from one of these clubs, then be very wary because they've all got supporters and you're going to hear a lot. Steve-O's going to be banging on about Burnley, and as much as I love Steve-O, peeps, I would not listen, because they're going to get battered, aren't they? They're going to get battered. As for Sunderland, targeting Sunderland, I might even do a video on targeting these teams at some stage and have a look at how targeting the likes of Southampton would have worked this season, especially in terms of picking your captains and stuff like that. Anyway, so you could award more points. That's one way of doing it. Or you could just leave it as it is and hope that Leeds, Burnley and Sunderland turn out to be better than expected. And we just do what we normally do and just use them as bench fodder. But I think the rule whereby we can have 5 transfers now, save up our transfers, pretty much makes that option less attractive, doesn't it? In the past, I've often put 2 4.0 defenders on the bench, 4.0 keeper, even a non-playing keeper, and all well and good. But now you can save up transfers. It's probably better to have a slightly better bench now. And if you do, you're not going to be picking any of these players, are you? Now, are there any other options? You tell me. Let me know in the chat what you think about it. Or, am I barking up the wrong tree? Is there not even a problem here? Is there no problem? Is it all in my head? Is it all in my head? I don't think it is, because a lot of people are saying this, in real life, that it's a bad situation now for these clubs. They come up and they go straight back down, don't they? Some of them now, they know before the season even starts that they're going back down. So they don't bother wasting money on all these like foreign mercenaries. They just keep the side they've got. They're happy to like lose and go back down again and get their parachute payment. And then they're still in good shape to carry on. Whereas it's very difficult because if a side comes up and decides they want to stay up, then they end up spending a huge amount on wages and buying in like all these players, usually from abroad, that have no real commitment to the club. And then at the end of the season, the club gets relegated and all these players want to leave and it's disruptive and they end up in a worse state than when they came up, and they end up like Luton, going straight back down to another division or whatever. And, so it's not altogether healthy sometimes for these clubs to even get promoted. So it is a bit of an issue, I think. But in terms of FPL, it's certainly probably best to avoid the whole lot of them. You're going to get a lot of hype in pre-season, I suspect, especially around Leeds players. And personally, I'll probably be avoiding them because the golfing quality between the Premier League and the Championship is just grown and grown and grown. I mean, you can argue, though, that the likes of Wolves, even Brentford and teams like that, do slip up when they start having all their assets stripped. Like Wolves have lost Cunha. Brentford are going to lose Buemo. They might even lose their manager and apparently could go to Tottenham. And, if that happens, Southampton looked pretty healthy, didn't they, a few years ago? And they've repeatedly kept selling and selling and selling. And in the end, they came unstuck. So that can happen. But it's going to be very much a surprise if any more than one of these teams stays up. Even one of them is probably 50-50. Anyway, peeps, that's about it. So let me know if you like this video. And if you don't, I'll do something better. Do you like the new layout, by the way? I'm starting to work on my layout for next season. And I've come up with some cracking ideas for next season already. Cracking ideas. One of them's good. No, I won't even say actually because it might get copied. It's such a good idea, but I think people will copy it if they know what it is in advance. They probably still will anyway, but at least the season will be underway by then. And that's about it, peeps, I think. So I will see you all later. Next week we might well be discussing the World Club Champs, or the week after. The excitement is building with Auckland City from the local park league here in New Zealand, which they literally are. We're in the National League, which is a park league. I mean, my local park here is just a park with goalposts, not even a stand. And teams from the National League play in this park. Actually, Auckland City have played in this park. And they are playing Benfica, Bayern Munich and Boca Juniors in a couple of weeks' time. And people said to me, Auckland are good. Auckland are good. They're winning the A-League. Yes, they were, but that's Auckland FC. That is not Auckland City. Auckland FC play in the Australian A-League and were not eligible to represent Oceania in the football World Club Champs. So it's the local park team, completely amateur Auckland City, that is playing in the World Club Champs alongside Messi and all the rest of them. So it's going to be very, very interesting, peeps, and I'm really looking forward to it. Anyway, I'll catch you all later, and cheers for now then, peeps. And remember to